know the question that you were just dying to have answered. What are the Federalist Papers? Hi everybody, my name is Micah Nicole and I like to make videos about American history and some of the things your teacher may have never told you about. So if you've never heard of the Federalist Papers, you're not alone. They're kind of an obscure thing in the founding of American history that many people have not actually heard about. So what are the Federalist Papers? They're a collection of 85 essays composed by James Madison, John Jay, and Alexander Hamilton. Now, in order to fully understand the importance of the Federalist Papers, I gotta give you a little bit of backstory. Alright, so the year is 1776, and the Founding Fathers have just declared independence from Great Britain. So in 1777, the Founding Fathers created our first governing document of this new nation called America. So it was called the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, which is a very long and obnoxious title for a document if you ask me, but that's what it was called. So this governing document called the Articles of Confederation wasn't even ratified until 1781 because the founders and all Americans at the time were very suspicious of government, reasonably so. They were in the middle of the Revolutionary War and they're trying to throw off Britain, who does not seem to be too happy that we just declared independence. No duh. So they drafted something in 1777, but it took until 1781 for all of the states to ratify this new constitution. So part of what took so long was that the Revolutionary War was still in full throttle, and that took a lot of everybody's attention. But one of the primary reasons why it took so long for the Articles of Confederation to even be ratified to begin with was that they were so suspicious of government that they were very content with keeping power localized in the individual states, and they were very suspicious of putting any kind of centralized power in the Continental Congress. So the Articles of Confederation had a lot of problems with it to begin with. So jump to 1781, the Articles of Confederation have been ratified, and they suck. They really, really suck. Part of the problem is that the Articles of Confederation purposefully make the central government very, very weak, which is kind of a problem if you're in the middle of a war. The Continental Congress couldn't tax the states. The Continental Congress couldn't standardize currency or make alliances very easily or anything, really. And every measure required 9 of the 13 states to sign on before it could be done. So this made it very difficult to do things like pay the soldiers, even get supplies to feed and clothe the soldiers, and artillery and bullets and all the things that were required to support an army, not to mention making alliances or getting loans to fund your war effort or anything like that. It was all a huge mess, and the Continental Congress was essentially relying on 13 independent states that were functioning almost as independent nations, and they couldn't wrangle them all, which caused a lot of problems during the Revolutionary War. So by the end of the Revolutionary War in 1783, things were kind of a mess because of the Articles of Confederation, and there were a lot of rebellions and financial issues that needed to be rectified. So that's why in May of 1787, the state sent a whole group of delegates to Philadelphia to try to rectify the problems that they saw with the Articles of Confederation. Except instead of amending the Articles of Confederation, the convention went a little bit awry, and Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, along with a couple of others, decided that it would be better to convince everybody to chuck the Articles of Confederation and propose an entirely new constitution. So Madison and Hamilton and some of the other delegates convinced enough of the delegates to draft an entire new constitution, and they argued about it from May of 1787 to September of 1787. And on September 17th, 1787, they finally got enough signatures on this new constitution to send it off to the states to be ratified. So that's where we get to the Federalist Papers. And the delegates drafted a new constitution, but the states still needed convincing in order to get them to ratify this constitution that they had worked so hard to put together. See, they weren't even supposed to draft an entire new constitution. The states sent them there to amend the Articles of Confederation. So they were already a little bit suspicious of this whole thing to begin with. In this culture of this brand new American society, there's still a whole host of fears about centralized government and what if we can't make this work and we just threw off the government in Britain? Are we going to be able to govern ourselves effectively, and how are we going to do that? And plenty of people had plenty of different ideas about how this new country was going to be set up to operate. Americans were still super afraid of centralized power, and no one had ever tried a republic on this size and scale before without it completely collapsing. There's a lot of unknowns here. There's a lot of different factors that go into play. So this giant debate ensued between the Federalists, who were in favor of adopting this new constitution, and the group which would be called the Anti-Federalists, which were not in favor of adopting this new constitution. So this giant essay battle commences between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, trying to convince the public to adopt and ratify or completely reject this new constitution. And that's where the Federalist Papers come in. This was the brainchild of Alexander Hamilton, who recruited the other two writers for this project, because as one of the most prominent lawyers of New York, Alexander Hamilton had to defend this constitution, writing essays trying to persuade the citizens of New York to adopt and ratify this new constitution. And both sides are writing in their best 18th century elegant, shade-throwing prose.
After an unequivocal experience of the inefficacy of the subsisting federal government, you are called upon to deliberate on a new constitution for the United States of America. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country, by their conduct and example, to decide the important question, whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. Alexander Hamilton, Federalist Number 1.
Hamilton decides to take up defense of the Constitution and recruits both James Madison and John Jay to help him write this series of essays. And they write under the pen name Publius. I think I said that correctly. Which is after a Roman politician who helps to establish the Roman Republic. So, if you've ever heard the Hamilton soundtrack, probably the only rap that I will ever listen to in my life, if I'm going to be completely honest. You'll remember that out of the 85 essays composed, 77 original, 8 added later, John Jay wrote 5 of them and then got really sick and had to quit. James Madison wrote 29, and then Hamilton wrote the other 51! Through the series of essays, the 3 Federalists articulate why this new constitution actually will A, fix a lot of the problems that were arising through the Articles of Confederation, and B, be the best solution that they can come up with to protect their newly won liberties. So, I don't know if these Federalist Papers actually made a gigantic impact or not, but the fact that they wrote on these things is so cool. The fact that they took the time, like here in the modern world we have Twitter, and it's fast and it's quick and it's short. But these papers, these essays that are in this book are, dense and articulate and elegant, and average people were reading these to make up their mind about whether or not they should ratify this new constitution. And I think it's just incredible, and it's a reflection on the time in which these things were taking place, that normal people would sit down and read something like this. And I think it's worth the time to check it out. So I hope you enjoyed my story. If you will, would you please hit like and subscribe down below, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. So, if men were angels, then no government would be necessary, and if angels were to govern men, then, oh man. This is a whole quote about off the top of my head. Anyways, and both sides are writing it, and they're, oh my goodness.